Okay, sit yourself on your lift and just come into a comfortable cross-legged position. Just have a little wriggle about, just make sure that you feel even, and lift your chest, drawing your shoulders away from your ears. Look down at the floor, look at something that's not moving. Just listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. And emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Press your palms firmly together, lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. Squeezing the elbows in towards the heels of the hands, lengthening from the heels of the hands to the fingertips. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just observing the action of the breath as the lungs fill from the bottom to the top and empty from the top to the bottom. Breathing into both lungs evenly, drawing your attention into the breath. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in your heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then raise your head and allow your eyes to gently open. So come off your lift and get your bolster. If you haven't got a bolster, you can just use some cushions and just build it up a little with an extra blanket. Have a block for your head. And we're just going to come into Adho Mukha Virasana, but come in along the bolster so that we've got some support for the head. You might need a couple of blocks for your head if it feels too low for one, or just try a number of ways. But sit back on your heels and stretch into the arms. It's important to have something underneath your forehead because you need to press the area between the forehead, between the eyebrows firmly into the block. So this is just a good way to quieten the brain, but also to help relieve the symptoms of migraine. So there's extension, but the extension is supported. The shape of the body is slightly different because of the bolster. So this is extension rather than restorative. So we're still working to extend the arms away, still working to broaden the shoulder region, keeping the neck soft. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Soften your neck, soften your jaw, soften your tongue. Just focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate in-breaths and deliberate out-breaths. And then just come back up, sit back on your heels. Just lift up into the chest. And then come into cross legs, just into swastikasana. You might need some extra lifts on top. So we're just going to be in cross legs and have a couple of bolsters for your head. And then you're just going to stretch yourself forwards so that the head is supported. Again, pressing the forehead into the floor and then stretching your arms along either the floor or the bolster, just to give yourself that space to really extend into the fingers, into the palms. So if you decide that perhaps your position is too high up, then you can adjust. Be on fingertips as you extend your arms away. Breathe evenly and deeply listening to the breath. So applying a little gentle pressure onto the forehead. Just listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Breathing into both lungs evenly, breathing out of both lungs evenly. And then bring yourself up into a lifted position. And then if you've got 2 bolsters, then that's good. If you haven't, then just get 1 bolster and then just pile up some cushions and some blocks for your legs. So you've got kind of a longer lift off the floor. So if you've got 2 bolsters, then all you need is just those 2 bolsters. But if you don't, then give yourself a little bit of extra lift. Get a belt and then put the belt around, put the belt into a loop, and then put the belt around your legs, and then you're going to sit yourself on the top bolster. Just have the legs quite kind of firmly together but not too tight, and then I'm just going to come off the end of the bolster so the shoulders come down. So setubandha, but with a little bit of extra cushioning under the legs, and then let the arms come to the sides of the body. So you might have to adjust a couple of times to find the right position for your back, but just allow yourself to just rest into the floor. Extend into your legs, push the heels away, pull the toes towards the kneecaps. Just gently push the legs into the belt so the legs are firm, the hips are firm, but without overworking. Focus on the breath, on the softness and gentleness of the breath. Listen to the breath as it enters and as it exits. Soften the jaw and the tongue and your throat. So this isn't restorative. We're still extending into the heels, pulling the toes towards the kneecaps, pushing the legs into the belt. Still feeling that the chest lifts upwards and that the shoulders are firmly planted on the floor. We're focusing on breathing evenly into both lungs and out of both lungs. So while the pose is supported with the equipment, at the same time we maintain that dynamic action, perhaps a little softer than a typical pose, but don't just let it be a kind of a flop into the bolster. Use your physical understanding of the body to deepen extension, to deepen the effects of the pose. So again, this sensation of releasing the head onto the floor helps to quieten the brain and hopefully relieve the symptoms of migraine. If you don't have a migraine, then all good, but you can still Feel the benefits of the quietening action of the breath and of the extension and of the openness of the chest. Okay, we're going to come out of the pose in a moment. So if you bend your knees and just draw your knees towards you, just loosen off the belt, bring the feet onto the floor, and then just very gently just roll yourself onto your right side, and then just sit back on your right side for a moment, and then just lift yourself up. If you've got the belt still around your legs, then just slide it off. So we're going to do janu sirsasana, but with head support. If you've got a chair handy, all the better. If you haven't, then you can just pile some blocks up. It's good sometimes to have something, especially if you've got a migraine, to have something soft on the seat of the chair. So we're just going to do janu sirsasana. So you sit with your legs stretching away in dandasana, and then we're going to come forwards and we're going to rest the head onto the lift. So make sure you've got the chair close enough that you'll be able to comfortably extend. Then you're going to bring your left leg out to the side. As you do that, try not to disturb the seat bones, and then face the chair, and then bring your arms onto the seat of the chair, and then stretch forward. Again, we're not doing this as a restorative pose as such, and restorative means just total relaxation. We're working to extend that front leg. So the right leg stays straight, the left leg just comes out to the side. If that knee doesn't reach the floor comfortably, then just put a block underneath the knee. Turn the chest to face the chair, and then just stretch your arms along the top of the chair if you can. If you can't, then just bring them to the sides of just along the floor, and then come forwards. So breathing evenly, again pressing the forehead gently into the chair. Just breathing evenly, keeping that extension from that hip into the heel of that right leg, and from the hip into the knee, and from the knee into the foot of that left leg. Just breathing evenly and deeply. This is also good practice for calming and quietening the brain, because supporting the forehead like this allows the frontal lobes of the brain to quieten, and that is where we do most of our thinking. So while thinking is a necessary and useful function of being a human being, sometimes it can also be a bit of a curse. Sometimes the thoughts just run away with us, and we allow ourselves to think ourselves into a hole of depression or of unbalanced state. So allowing the brain to quieten is a valuable asset in our practice. We keep extending that straight leg. Breathing evenly into both lungs, evenly out of both lungs. Just a gentle extension in the spine, not overworking the back, but just coming forward gently. Very gently raise your head and stretch the left leg away, and then bring the right leg out to the side again, using the support for that knee if you need to. Try not to disturb the hips as you bring that leg back, and then again just coming forwards, feeling the extension of that straight leg. So working to tadassanarize that left leg, turning the front of the thigh inwards, the front of the shin inwards down to the floor, turning the inner knee down to the floor, lengthening from the hip into the heel. Breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Stretching out that leg, but feeling that you're still extending, however gently, from the hip into the knee of that right leg, from the knee into the heel of the right leg. So that right leg doesn't just remain idle, it becomes a conscious part of the foundation of the pose. Lengthening from the hips into the armpits, lengthening the spine. Okay, and then just gently come back to the center, just stretch the legs out, and then just come forward, both legs stretched out, come forwards and rest your head down on the floor. If you're protecting your back, just bring the chair closer and just have more height for your head. So just literally just pressing your head like this, but keeping the legs still really firm. So you can use a bolster between your knees, just resting your head on the bolster if you haven't got a chair handy. So it's always about adapting, but coming forwards and just letting the head rest on the chair. I've got a folded towel on top of the chair so that the top of the chair feels soft. So typically in paschimottanasana you would have the legs together, but sometimes it's easier to come forwards a little more if your legs are a bit further apart. In fact, if your legs are as wide apart as the chair, you can push your legs into the chair legs, just to really activate the legs. Breathing Listening to the breath. So the challenge really is maintaining the dynamic action of the pose rather than going for the restorative effect where the aim is to relax. The aim is to maintain the extension, but just with support. So maybe the chest will be rounding a little more than it would be at this height in true paschimottanasana. But the legs should be charged. The arms should be extended. The head should be resting. Okay, and then just lift up. Just sit yourself in cross legs for a moment. Just observe how the head feels light and the neck feels long and the shoulders feel maybe a little more flexible. Okay, we're going to do prasarita padottanasana, but you might still need the chair or a bolster. So I'll just show you. So you're going to come up into a standing pose with your legs really wide, and then we're going to come forwards, hinging at the hips. So you might just be at this stage and then put a chair underneath your head to rest your head. If you can come down lower, then you bring your head all the way down onto the floor. Or you use your bolster to bring your head just so that there's support for the head. So even if the legs go really wide apart, and then you have some support for your head. So you can use the chair if you need it, or just stick with a bolster, or just use the floor. Just go nice and wide with the legs, and then turn your toes in. Lift up into the chest. Have your hands on your hips. Lift up into the chest, and hinge at the hips. Come forwards, extending into the chest. Reach down and find the floor, and just work initially to really lift up into the chest, to hit the legs towards the wall behind you, to extend deeply from the hips into the armpits, from the tailbone into the neck, into the chin. And then keeping the back really straight. Come down and then bring the top of your head onto the mat or onto the bolster or onto a folded blanket. Just give yourself something that feels soft underneath your head. So even if you can come all the way down, you could give yourself some just gentle support under the head. Have the heels of the hands in line with the heels of the feet. Have the elbows parallel to each other, so they're not kind of rolling out to the side. Make sure that the palms of the hands, the heels of the hands are evenly distributed in terms of your weight of the arms. Push your hands into the floor, trying to push the hands towards your head. The legs really firm. So there should be no weight on your head. Get your legs to do the work. Get your legs to extend from the hips, from the heels up into the hips. Breathing evenly. Softening the neck, lengthening the neck. So if you can maintain the weight of your body in your legs, if you can hit the legs back, taking the weight off your head, then you can reach around the outsides of the heels, but not at the expense of suddenly driving lots of weight into your head. So hit your legs back. If I'm holding you too long in the pose, then just come to the first stage, extending the chest away. Always just stay and maintain if you can, just keeping your head supported. Feeling that you can lengthen the legs by pressing the feet really consciously into the floor, and then lift the shins out of the feet. Lift the kneecaps away from the shins, lift the thighs up towards the hips. Breathing evenly. Okay, bring your hands back down onto the floor underneath your shoulders. Lift your head, just come forwards. Just breathing evenly. And then step or jump your feet back together. And then just come up into a standing position, just come into Tadasana. Just breathing evenly, just feeling the length of the shoulders away from the neck, lengthening the neck up towards the ceiling. Just breathing gently, stretching into the fingertips. Okay, we're going to do uttanasana. So again, something under your head, so a bolster. So uttanasana is where we're going to do it with the feet apart, turning the toes in, then coming forwards, and then you need something to rest your head. So maybe just find some, maybe a bolster, maybe a bolster up, just up on its end will do the job. Just have, if you use a bolster for the hands, then have blocks for underneath your feet. So just have the feet apart, and then just find whatever you need, and then just come into just standing with the feet hip width apart, toes turned in, lift up into the chest, and then with straight legs gently come forwards, and then bring forehead into support. Have your hands at the sides of the body. Just allow the body to just rest, but keep the legs extending. I think I said the word rest too soon there. So rest in the forehead, but working the legs determinedly. So lengthening the toes away from the heels, lengthening the heels away from the toes, so that you really tighten the kneecaps. Lift the shins out of the ankle socket, lift the kneecap up towards the thighs, lift the thighs up into the hip socket, turning the thighs inwards. Just breathing evenly and deeply, just supporting the head in whichever way you need. So keeping the legs dynamically lifting. So pushing the feet into the floor. So when we were in paschimottanasana, we were pushing our legs into the chair legs to really broaden the backs of the glutes and the buttock region and the thighs. So push the feet into the floor and imagine that you're pushing your legs into something that's kind of constricting the legs. You're pushing the legs away from each other so that you really broaden into the buttock region. Okay, and then when you're ready, just bring yourself back up into a standing position. And then just be in Tadasana, just lifting up into the chest. Just lengthening the shoulders away from the neck, lengthening the neck up into the ceiling. Okay, and then bring yourself down into supta konasana. So have a bolster for underneath your back and blanket, folded blanket for your head. And then bring your feet down as close to the seat bones as you can. And then guide yourself along the bolster And allow the knees to fall apart. If there's stiffness in your hips, then just put some blocks underneath your thighs. Just feel how the abdomen, the diaphragm and the collarbone experience a really big opening action. Again, keeping the legs dynamic, pushing the heels consciously together, pushing the outer edge of the feet consciously together, lifting up into the chest, broadening the front of the chest. Listen to the sound of the breath. So closing your eyes, allowing your eyes to soften in the sockets. Soften around the eyes. Soften your tongue. Notice that when you soften your tongue, you also soften around the eyes. Softening your jaw and your tongue and your throat. Just releasing the hips into the floor, opening the front of the hips. Just listening to the sound of the breath. ready, just push your elbows into the floor and then bring yourself up into a seated position. Just stretch the legs out. And then we're going to go back into setubandha sarvangasana with the 2 bolsters. So you just use whatever you used last time. So have the belt around your legs again, just to help the legs to stay in position. Just sit yourself on your bolster. Just tie the legs together and then just guide yourself down so that the chest is really lifted. The arms just rest on the floor, either side of the bolster. Again, just adjust until it feels comfortable. So there should be a good opening around the chest. You can push your legs consciously into the belt, extending from the hips into the heels. It's like we were pushing the legs into the chair. So not overworking this time, this is on the wind down. So just let the belt hold the legs. Just extend them every now and then, but allow them to be soft. As the shoulders are on the floor, the back of the neck is supported by the floor. The rest of the body is lifted by the bolsters. Okay, just without disturbing yourself too much, just bend your knees and then just guide yourself off the bolsters and then roll the bolsters out away from you. Take the belt off your feet, off your legs, and then just prepare yourself for sirvasana, just the final pose of sirvasana, so have a blanket from underneath your head. Just have warm something on your feet if you're going to be a bit chilly. It's only going to stay for a minute or two. Just lay yourself down in a good straight line and then allow yourself to release into the floor. So although maybe the body feels a little different to after our typical practice, there should still be a feeling of lightness and physical awareness that radiates out from the bones into the flesh, into the skin, into the muscle. Allow yourself to just gently release into the floor, no more extension, just allowing the body to rest into the floor. Just observing that feeling of lightness, filling the physical body. Use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that feeling evenly throughout the body. When you're ready to disturb yourself, just gently wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Bend your knees in towards your chest, just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position, just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Drawing your breath in through your nose down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you've released through your more gentle approach to the practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy, the extensions and the forward bends and the inclined poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you have just stretched yourself out, but quietened the brain, giving yourself some release from tension. So thank you very much for joining.